Hello and welcome back to lashow. Thank you guys so much for tuning back in with me. Today we're going to look back into Yummy Sandifer's story. Now, for those of you who do not know who Robert Yummy Sandifer was, I will read from Wikipedia. Robert Yummy Sandifer, born on March 12th of 1983 and transitioned on September 1st of 1994, was an 11-year-old American boy from Chicago, Illinois. Sandifer's murder by fellow gang members in Chicago garnered national attention because of his age, resulting in his appearance on the cover of Time magazine in September of 1994. Nicknamed Yummy because of his love of cookies, standing at 4 feet 6 inches tall, Sandifer was a young member of the street gang the Black Disciples, or BD. After committing murder, arson, and armed robbery, he was murdered by his own fellow gang members, who feared he could become an informant and that he was attracting too much attention towards their activities. Coverage of Sandifer's death and retrospectives on his short, violent life were widely published in American media. Sandifer became a symbol of the gang problem in American inner cities, the failure of social safety nets, and the shortcomings of the juvenile justice system. Robert Sandifer was born in Chicago, Illinois on March 12th of 1983. Sandifer's mother, Lorena Sandifer, had over 30 arrests while prostituting, many of which were drug-related. Sandifer's father, Robert Akins, was absent throughout Sandifer's life due to incarceration for a felony gun charge. Sandifer was physically abused from the time he was an infant. Before he was 3 years old, Sandifer was already known to the Department of Children and Family Services. Physical examinations showed that Sandifer was alleged to have had cigarette burns on his arms and neck, as well as linear bruising consistent with physical beatings. Lorena initially blamed the abuse on Sandifer's father, although she later recanted. In 1986, Sandifer and his siblings were removed from his mother's home by DCFS and were sent to live with their grandmother in the Roseland neighborhood of Chicago. His grandmother's residence contained as many as 19 children on some occasions. By most accounts, his grandmother's home was not much better than Sandifer's previous home. Sandifer, by the age of 8, quit attending school and began to roam the streets, stealing cars and breaking into houses. At the age of 10, Sandifer was arrested on charges of armed robbery. A psychological examiner at the time reported that Robert is a child growing up without any encouragement and support, and that he has a sense of failure that has infiltrated almost every aspect of his inner self. In 1993, Sandifer and his siblings were removed from his grandmother's home and were sent to the Lawrence Hall DCFS shelter on Chicago's North Side, from which Sandifer ran away and never returned. From 1993 until his death, Sandifer's whereabouts and living arrangements remain unclear, although he continued to be arrested by the authorities. According to Wikipedia, under his criminal behavior tab, Sandifer was known for bullying and stealing money from children and the community in the Chicago neighborhood of Roseland. He liked luxury cars and remarkably was able to drive them despite his small size. Many of his 23 felonies and 5 misdemeanors were committed in the course of running errands for street gangs. The penal system had no way to keep him out of trouble, and the courts were helpless to lock him away because he was too young for juvenile detention and too dangerous to be placed with children his age. He never got in serious trouble for his crimes due to his age. Yummy's death. On August 28th of 1994, Sandifer was ordered to do a favor for his gang. He opened fire several times with a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, striking several youths. Sandifer quickly fled the scene. Among the victims was 14-year-old Siobhan Dean, who was hit by a stray bullet and later died from her gunshot wounds. The crime spree made national headlines. The nation was shocked by the brutality of the crime and the fact that the alleged perpetrator was 11 years old. The Chicago police began a manhunt for Sandifer. According to Sergeant Ronald Palmer of the Chicago Police, Sandifer's actions were a gang initiation gone wrong. On August 31st, while standing on the porch of a neighbor, asking to call his grandmother, in whom he had the greatest trust, Sandifer was met by brothers Craig and Derek Hardaway, ages 16 and 14, members of the Black Disciples street gang. Sandifer was told he was being taken to a safe location and ordered into a waiting car. Instead, he was taken to a railroad underpass at East 108th Street and South Dauphin Avenue and told to get on his knees. While kneeling, Sandifer was shot twice in the back of his head by the Hardaway brothers. Sandifer's body was discovered by the Chicago Police Department in the early morning of September 1st. Both Hardaways were later convicted of Sandifer's murder. Around 400 people attended Sandifer's funeral, which was held at the Youth Center Church of God in Christ on Chicago's northwest side. Now I want you to hear how the community responded to the murders of Siobhan Dean and Yummy Sandifer. This interview is from 1994.
2 kids died this past week and the week before. 2 young kids from fairly large families in a not-so-young neighborhood. This has been a big news story, a tragedy covered by media from all over the world. But there's a lot more to this drama than what you've seen, although we know you've seen and read a lot.
You knew Siobhan, yeah?
She's my niece.
She's your niece? What's your name, man?
Ida Falls.
What was she like?
What was Siobhan like? She was a very cheerful young lady, beautiful, outgoing. She was a good girl, real good girl, full of life, and she loved to come outside and play. She loved to do hair. You know, she was beginning to start doing hair, and she loved to see beauty. She liked the likes of beautiful things. She wasn't a bad girl.
How did you find out about her death?
How did I find out?
Yeah.
Well, I lived just right here. And I heard 2 shots. And when I heard the 2 shots, my 2 kids was on the porch. So I was sitting to the table eating my supper at the time. And I ran to the door, and so my daughter said, make the kids come in. So I told my son and my granddaughter to come in the house. So as they came in the house, I sat back down. So some told me to get up and go look out the window. So I just came to my window right there and looked out, and so I saw my son, prancing back and forth, saying, call the police, call the police. And so then I ran out the back door with my shoes off. And he said, somebody's daughter is laying down here hurt. So, I don't care who child is, I want to help. So I ran out the back door and ran right here. And I still didn't know it was my niece laying down there. And so my brother, he ran out the door, and he ran right there. And then I'm pretty sure he said he knew it was his daughter. I'm pretty sure that my brother knew what she had on, her clothing. So he ran and he looked at her and he put his hand on her and felt her pulse. So he said, she still have a pulse. So he said, call the police. The police were there so quick. I mean, they was here on arrival. And so the police, they came and put white gloves on, and they felt my niece, But I knew, she wasn't going to make it.
I just wanted to know what you think, what kind of guy he was.
Hey, man, he was a little kid.
He was a kid?
Yeah.
When you see him, how old was he?
He was 11.
11. What was he like when he was a little kid?
He was a sweet little kid. He wasn't violent, and he wasn't bad. The way they talking about now, that's not true. It's not true.
Like when you say...
Every time somebody says something, they change it around. He was this and he was that, and I know that he was not.
Well, what was he like then? In other words, when he was growing up, did he have a sense of humor?
Yes, he did.
How did you find out that your nephew was killed?
What you mean how I found out he was
Did you
killed?
get a phone call?
No. They just burned the picture here.
If I was to see this young man on the street, I've never seen him, right? What would I see? What did he look like? Was he a tall fellow? Was he
No,
short?
he was this short. He was very short. To be his age, he was real short.
Was he a bright fellow? Was he a smart guy?
Yeah, he was very bright and very smart. He can draw, he can read, he can write.
What kind of food did he like? I mean, was he...
He loved food, gyros. You know, he ate a lot. When Mama had barbecues, he ate that. He ate a lot.
Why was his nickname Yummy?
Because he loved cookies.
His nickname was Yummy because he loved cookies.
Yeah,
What was his favorite cookie?
chocolate chip. Oreo. You know them chocolate chips in the blue bag? That's what he liked.
What's your name?
My name is Gloria.
Gloria, did he have, like, when he was growing up, did he have any heroes? Did he have any sports heroes?
Well, he liked a lot of cars. He liked to fix on cars and stuff like that.
Did he ever talk about what he wanted to be when he was growing up?
Not to my knowledge. Maybe to my mother, but not to my knowledge.
How long did you know him?
Since I've been staying around here,
How long was that?
about a year.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What was he like?
Bad.
Bad? Like, when you say bad, what do you mean?
Fighting, stealing, breaking in people's houses.
I think you should have answered the question.
Yeah?
Shut up!
What
Why am I always open up that door?
Did you ever see, like, the police come into his house?
Every other day.
Every other day the police would come into his house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? When you found out that he was killed, right? What did you think?
I mean, it shocked me. He shouldn't have got killed like that. I mean, he didn't have to die the way he was killed, but that's the life you live. That's what happened.
All of you children that are standing here, looking down, take a good look, and I want you to say within your hearts that you'll never end up like Robin. Okay? Cry if you will. And make up your mind that you will never let your life end in tragedy like this.
So, as you all heard in the Wikipedia article, 2 brothers were convicted of the murder of Yummy Sandifer. In this article from 1994, I'm not too sure on why only one brother is being shown. However, the article, Brothers Charged in Boy's Execution, 3 Young Faces of Tragedy, it just stood out to me. I found an article online from WGNTV.com, Men Convicted in 1994 Murder of 11-year-old Speak Out for the First Time. This was posted on December 15th of 2014. It does reference in this article that this is archive information and some of the article may be outdated. As reporters, there are some stories that just stick with us through the years. For WGN's Tanya Francisco, it was the story of Yummy Sandifer, a young man who at 11 years old had a rap sheet longer than most adults. He died violently in a gangland execution by 14 and 16-year-old brothers. Now, for the first time, we hear from both of the brothers about the fateful night, what they've learned, and their hopes for the future. At 36, Craig Hardaway is older, wiser, and also a little nervous when it comes to the interview. 20 years after a notorious murder that thrust him into the national spotlight, he and his younger brother Derek are talking about the case It took me years to admit and accept my role in it, Derek said. It was an unusually chilly September night in 1994 when Yummy was shot twice in the back of the head in a hit ordered by leaders of the Black Disciples. Craig was only 16 years old when his mugshot was plastered on TV when he was arrested for the murder of Robert Yummy Sandifer. Craig's brother, Derek, who was 14 at the time, was too young for his mugshot to be released. He was convicted of driving the getaway car. Craig, Derek, and Yummy were all members of the same gang, the Black Disciples, and all three would eventually learn that membership in a street gang comes at a high price. Chicago recorded 930 homicides in 1994, the second highest on record. Among the dead was 14-year-old Siobhan Dean, who shot in the head by a stray bullet during a shooting spree in the city's Roseland neighborhood that injured two other teens. Chicago police quickly identified 11-year-old Yummy as the gunman. Gang leaders decided Yummy needed to be silenced because he knew too much, so they ordered Craig to kill him. Derek refused to leave his brother's side. A lot of people don't know that he actually took me home, Derek said, and I could just feel something wasn't right. So when I asked him what's going on, he told me everything. I refused to let him go by himself. I should have been more of a big brother, Craig said, but at the time, that ain't the way you think. After the murder, both brothers were in custody, and months later, they were convicted felons. Craig got 60 years for murder, and Derek got 45 for driving the getaway car. They were the only two ever tried in the case, even though they say others were involved. Abandoned by their fellow gang members and isolated from their families, the brothers have spent the past 20 years rehabilitating themselves. Both have gotten their GEDs and associate's degrees. Derek is cultivating his landscaping skills by working in the prison's garden, and Craig is involved in anti-violence programs. But for Craig, there's one piece of unfinished business: reaching out to Yummy's family, who has not responded to him. I'll answer any questions that they may have concerning that night, leading up to that night, Craig said. Both brothers say they think about Yummy's murder every day. The tears, they say, have long since dried up. Instead, they are focused on getting out one day and making sure others don't end up on the same path that led them to prison. Derek is eligible for parole in 2016. Craig will be eligible in 2024. Neither brother plans to return to the Roseland neighborhood where they grew up for fear they could be drawn back into a lifestyle that Derek says will only lead them back to prison or to a grave. As far as these young men in jail, in prison, trying to rehabilitate themselves, I don't knock that at all. But this is something that is hindsight 2020. And just like these men said, when they were out in the streets, when they were young, they didn't think about the consequences. I want you all to show this video to your son, to your nephew, to your cousin, and just show them that it's real. This stuff is real. This case did garner national attention and even put Robert Yummy Sandifer on the front page of Time magazine. Read the title, So Young to Kill, So Young to Die. And the marketing of Black Death, to what Cisco, my partner, brought up in a previous video, it has been going on, and it is a well-oiled machine to this day.
Each and every person out there, don't forget about that clicking up thing, you know what I mean? Be to yourself. Stay to yourself. Trust nobody. Trust nobody.
After dark.
You know what I mean? Straight up. My closest friends did me in. My closest friends, my homies, people who I done took care of their whole family. I done took care of everything for them, looked out for them, put them in the game, everything. Turned on me. Fear is stronger than love. Remember that. Fear is stronger than love. All the love I gave didn't mean nothing when it came to fear. So it's all good. But I'm a soldier. I always survive. I'll constantly come back. You know what I mean? Only thing that can kill me is death. That's the only thing that'll ever stop me is death. And even then, my music will live forever.
On Instagram, I found this artist named Johnny the Artist, and he did a painting of Yummy back in 2014, and it's called Made in America. And that just says a lot. You know, I don't judge people. These stories that we hear from the past is a part of our history. And in order to grow and to become better, we have to know what came before us. Now, I do notice a disconnect between our people when we see the police shooting us versus one of our own shooting us. And either way, it's foul. This young man was brought into a situation that he was not equipped for, that he was not ready for. And it all traces back to me to DCFS. They let this young man slip through the cracks, and this is what we have. Made in America. At 11 years old, I don't expect for Yummy Sandifer to take full responsibility, even though I know he knew right from wrong. But just think about all of the OGs in the gang that were encouraging his behavior and also facilitating it. Please watch these kids out here, you guys. Do not let the streets raise these children. Please. These kids could be anybody. Anybody. Make sure you get them prepared for life. And before you bring a child into this world, make sure you're prepared. Rest in peace, Yummy. May your story live on to be able to help other young boys that may be growing up just like you did. Thank you all so much for listening to Yummy's story. I learned just as much as you did. Please subscribe to this channel if you're new. Also hit the notification bell for more, and find me on all of my social media platforms. They are listed in the description box, and I will be back with more.